I think Stanford is about to make a big mistake.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. Who's more sustainable on the recruiting trail, USC or North Carolina? That's an interesting question. Who starts at quarterback for Michigan? Oh, I love what I'm hearing over there. That's all on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So the most shocking story of the last 48 to 72 hours in college football is that Andrew Luck came in to be the GM and decided, all right, I'm hiring a new head coach. And the interim head coach is not somebody on staff for the Cardinal. It's Frank Reich. Yeah, that Frank Reich. You know, the guy who was Andrew Luck's last head coach in the NFL while he was with the Colts back in 2018, who maybe feels a little bit guilty. He retired, and Frank Reich got dealt a pretty crap hand, and it flamed out for him with the Colts. I'm just speculating on that. I don't know if he actually feels that way. I just wondered about it. Okay? Sue me. Frank Reich, who was the head coach of the Panthers for about an hour until they realized that, no, this isn't going to work out very well. And so he was just hanging out. And you bring in a guy who's been a head coach with two different NFL teams, who's never coached in college before, but has a more than decade-long coaching career in the NFL, who you have a close relationship with, who is a quarterback kind of guy, who's a play caller kind of guy, and you're telling me that's the interim coach? No. No, that's the interviewing head coach. And that would be a massive mistake. Because what Stanford needs to be competitive in the ACC, where they're trying to go against Miami with Mario Cristobal, they're trying to go against Bill Belichick. No, I couldn't. I tried to keep a straight face. I couldn't do it. Clemson and Dabo Swinney, whoever else you think is on the rise, SMU with Rhett Lashlee. Stanford's already way behind the eight ball here. And I respect the heck out of Andrew Luck for taking this GM job with his alma mater and saying, I want to revitalize the program. I want to get it back to where it's supposed to be, where it was when I was the quarterback, where it was when John Elway was the quarterback. That's what he's looking for here. Frank Reich doesn't represent that whatsoever. But you could have just completely punted on the 2025 season. No one would have blamed you. I understand you want the reset. You want somebody at head coach who you know, somebody who shares your vision, who doesn't have an off-season set of incidents hovering like a dark cloud around the program. You want to do all of that? Okay, it was shocking. I was surprised. I still am. This is not the direction that they should be going. Now, maybe this is Frank Reich doing his old friend a favor. Maybe it's, hey, do you want to come in and just be a head college coach for a year? I don't love the message that sends, but hey, if that's all it winds up being, then one day look back on this segment and say, Spencer, you were overreacting for nothing. But to me, somebody with Frank Reich's pedigree doesn't just agree to become a Power 4 interim head coach when he's never been in college football before, a conference, by the way, that has Bill Belichick in it. Those teams are going to play a football game. Bill Belichick, Frank Reich in the ACC. Oh, man, I tell you. That's good. That's good quality stuff. Classic ACC football. Anyway, you don't bring somebody in like that if it's not an interviewing head coach. Jake Dickert, once upon a time, when Nick Rolovich was let go at Washington State, he was promoted immediately from the defense coordinator to the head coach. And he viewed himself as the interviewing head coach. He wound up spending a few years in Pullman as the head guy. Went pretty well. Now he's on the other side of the country, also in the ACC, as Wake Forest head coach. If you were looking at the 2025 season as, you know what, we're just trying to find our next head coach. We're just trying to look to see what else is out. You wouldn't bring in somebody like Frank Reich. You'd give a coordinator a spot who's maybe still on staff, or a position coach, or anybody who's not a two-time NFL head coach, respected offensive mind, play caller, quarterback guru. And Andrew Luck, the former quarterback who was with this guy, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he wants somebody that understands that position, that wants to develop a quarterback like the Cardinal have not had in a very long time. Andrew Luck was a Heisman finalist. Kevin Hogan was a real good player for the Cardinal at quarterback. Since then, their guys have often done better in the NFL, Davis Mills and Tanner McKee, than they did at Stanford sometimes. It's been a problem. It's been a revolving door with Troy Taylor. It was Ashton Daniels, who's now at Auburn. It was Justin Lamson, who's transferred out as well. It was never right. And so Andrew Luck, I think, is looking at this in a very practical way and saying, hey, we got to be able to get this position right first. And they've got a super talented guy. Former modern-day four-star high school quarterback Elijah Brown. Yeah, that's somebody who big-time programs were after. He's with the Cardinal. If he's healthy, boy, I'd start him and try to keep him around, invest in him as the future. But you got to know who his quarterback coach is going to be, who his head coach is going to be. And you don't know any of those things right now, so it's going to be a challenge. But for a program that is looking for an entire reset as they try to ascend to where SMU is, or where Louisville is, or frankly, just get to where Duke is right now, which is not an easy place to get into academically. It's not Stanford, but boy, it's not that far off. So don't tell me it can't be done. It just might be a little bit harder and take a little bit longer. Hiring Frank Reich, who's never been around college football, would be so very wrong. So I really hope this is Andrew Luck just wanting somebody, for Stanford's sake, I hope this is Andrew Luck just wanting somebody that knows what it means to coach, is going to be able to go out there and showcase some of their young players, potentially, maybe, to keep the fans engaged, but he should be looking elsewhere in college football. There are far more qualified candidates to be Stanford's head coach to help them ascend in the ACC, which I think is perfectly doable. It requires institutional commitment and buy-in, the likes of which I don't think they had at the end of David Shaw's tenure. I do think the game passed him by. He lost his identity as a coach a little bit, but I do think that Stanford still has plenty of potential. You know that when Stanford's right, they're a top 25 high school recruiting program? Bet you didn't know that. Now you do. They have all that potential still there because of the academic prestige that they carry. There are certain kids who you wouldn't be able to get to go to other big-time schools because, well, I value my education a lot. Well, what's more valuable than I went to Stanford and graduated? That's a longer conversation. But I really hope that Frank Reich isn't the option, and it really is interim head coach, not interviewing head coach. That would be a mistake by Andrew Luck. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all that good stuff. Speaking of the ACC, you've got one school whose abbreviation starts with U on one side and one school on the other side. North Carolina or USC? Who's more sustainable? Oh, I'm so having that debate next. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. All-in-one convenience is what they're all about. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKDOWNCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKDOWNCollege for half off your first year. monarchmoney.com. And if you want to go to a show, a game, anything, Game Time is the place to go. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. or a big event in person, whatever you want to go to, getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. I used Game Time within the last month to get tickets to a comedy show. Guess what? Found a great deal, great seats, easy to get on my phone, easy to get in the arena, no problem. Boom. Bingo, bango, bongo. It all worked out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. It's hard to not like what USC is doing right now on the recruiting trail. They brought in a new GM from Notre Dame, reportedly paying him around $1 million. The early returns, he's worth every penny. So USC is sitting atop the recruiting rankings in 2026 for several services. Now, it's early. The summer is going to cause this stuff to go up and down. What the Trojans have accomplished, though, is it looks like they've given themselves a floor of a top 10 class. That's the floor. The ceiling, of course, as it always has been and will forever be for the USC Trojans, is the number one class in the country. No reason they can't push for that on an annual basis. No one gets it every year. But the amount of talent that is within spitting distance of USC's campus, you don't even have to go that far to find some of the best high school programs in the country. Yeah, they can get a lot of talent really easily, and their brand should allow them to recruit nationally. And if they invest financially, and it seems like they have upped their efforts in that regard over the last couple of cycles, it's continuing to pay dividends. So they continue to have the number one class. Yes, it's April 1st. I'm well aware. What would you think right now if USC had the 40th ranked recruiting class? Do you think their floor would be a top 10 class? No. No, you wouldn't say that. Now, part of the reason that USC is in this position is they've landed a lot of commitments early. That's what I see people discuss online all the time. Well, I mean, they just have more players than everybody else. Never mind the fact that plenty of them are highly rated. They have 17 players. The next closest is 13 with Clemson, and they're the number 2 class in the country. Well, they just have more guys. So I'm supposed to sit here and punish them for getting players to commit sooner? Some of those guys will flip. Yeah, most of them won't. Some will. They always do. It's a common theme in the summer, in the fall, around signing day. It happens. But if you go back and track the number of kids who are committed April 1st of every year for the next recruiting cycle, do you think it's over or under 60% remain committed to this school? I'd go out on a limb and feel very good doing so. It's a very strong branch I'm jumping out on here. Maybe walking out onto so that I don't break it if I jump up and down. I'm just finding all new ways to snap branches here. Anyway, I would go out on a limb and say, yeah, it's more than 60%. It's probably closer to 80%. Now, USC had several notable high-profile decommitments in the 2025 recruiting cycle. Not forgetting that. I have not just logged it out of my memory as, nope, never happened. Oh, what are you going to... The difference here is that when you introduce a new player at the table and suddenly the odds seem to have shifted, it's because they have. And in the world of general managers, they hired a really good one. So the latest commitment for the Trojans is not the highest rated guy. In fact, according to 24/7 Sports, he's their third lowest rated recruit of the 17 players they have in the 2026 cycle. They might soon be getting a 4-star defensive line commit who was committed to Oregon within the last week, but has decommitted, might flip to USC. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But Malik Brooks is a guy who, just a 3-star recruit, 6'4", 330 pounds. Might need a little work to get his body into shape for the college level. But there are two things I like about this. Number one, Alabama was after Malik Brooks as well. So recruiting ranking being what it is, which is just inside the top 800 nationally, this is not some high-profile name that would generate SEO clicks on this particular segment on YouTube. But what I do see here is a trend that the Trojans have needed to rectify and appear to be doing so. And that trend is, hey, We need to be bulkier. Teams run on us too easily. We need to be bigger in the trenches. And so they went out in the 25 cycle and got Jakeem Stewart. I saw a video of him walking to practice yesterday. He looks like he has been in college for 2 to 3 years. He hasn't even taken a snap yet. Yeah, he's a 5-star defensive lineman for a reason. But going out and getting these guys, hiring Danton Lynn, hiring a GM, lots of good things happening there. Now, on the other side of the country, you have North Carolina, who in the 2025 cycle with Bill Belichick and Mac Brown, the handoff and whatnot, their high school class was number 41 nationally. That's not where North Carolina should be. They should absolutely have. Do they have the amount of talent in their backyard that USC does? No. But right now, they're sitting at number 27 nationally. And if the Tar Heels do things right, they can recruit at a top 25 level and build a roster over time that is good enough to be top 3 or 4 in the ACC and push to make the college football playoff. No reason that can't happen. No reason that shouldn't be the expectation when Bill Belichick is one of the 10 highest paid coaches in college football. Within 2 to 3 years, they better be at least contending for a playoff spot. They better at least be able to get the Miami trajectory, where in year 3, you are 1 game away from making the college football playoff. But the Tar Heels have also been surging a bit. Now, I have been on record many a times and continue to be a doubter of Bill Belichick and his ability to succeed in college football. One trend I always look for when guys come down from the NFL, how do you recruit? Bill Belichick's never done that before. He's got a general manager who put together an NFL roster. It's different. So far, returns are not bad. Their highest rated commit is Trayshawn Ruffin, a defensive lineman who was courted by schools you may or may not have heard of, Texas A&M, Louisiana State, that's LSU, and Alabama. Amongst others, but those are just some headline schools. He went to North Carolina. That's the sort of thing that makes me turn my head not all the way around. I'm not doing a 360 snapping, whoa. But it makes me kind of peer over like, hey, what's going on over there? Some good's going down. So let's go back to the question I posed earlier on the show. What's more sustainable? North Carolina surging into the top 25 and staying there in the class of 2026, or USC staying in the top 5 nationally? To me, that answer should be USC. And it goes back to 2 factors. Factor number 1, Lincoln Riley's going into year 4. It's year 1 with his GM, but it's year 2 with his defensive coordinator, Danton Lynn. Year 4 for him as a head coach. That's an easier situation to have running like a well-oiled machine than Bill Belichick, who's adapting to the sport for the first time. Doesn't mean I don't think North Carolina's interesting. They absolutely are, hence why I discussed them here on the show. Reason number 2, though, I mentioned this before. USC is just right next to every school that has talent. Not all of them, of course, but they're not far away. And if they go in and reestablish a stronger foothold that they allowed Oregon to kind of walk into their backyard and take from them in the Southern California recruiting landscape, yeah, USC can recruit at a top 5 level every year. So I have more faith in that right now than I do North Carolina. But these are both schools that on the recruiting trail, I'm keeping an eye on for 2026. And you should too. I tell you something else I keep my eye on. I smiled ear to ear the other day. Ear to ear when I saw this report from Pete Nakos. First, this episode brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. So Pete Nakos made me smile the other day, ear to ear. I've never met Pete Nakos, who works for On3. I might never meet him. But Pete, if you're out there listening to or watching this show, just know I saw your report and I grinned ear to ear. Because that report said that Bryce Underwood is trending to be the starter for the Michigan Wolverines in week 1. Oof, boy, am I here for that. Now, there are a couple of names in that particular room. There's a former 4-star quarterback that is maybe working his way into the fold. There's Mikey Keene, who hasn't been around. I'm not entirely certain what's going on there. And quite frankly, I don't mean this is a shot at Mikey Keene. I don't care what the external factors are. Davis Warren's still on the roster, but he's coming back from an ACL injury. Not sure if he's going to be ready to go. And Michigan might just do what I have wanted them to do from the moment that they flipped Bryce Underwood from LSU. This was a huge landmark moment for the guys in maize and blue. Sherrone Moore went out, and with Collective and Dave Portnoy and all sorts of people involved, flipping the number 1 quarterback in the class of 2025. I want to see him start. Yes, this is a selfish escapade on my part. I want to see the number 1 quarterback in the country start right away. 2 reasons why. Reason number 1, can their passing offense get any worse? Legitimate question. They were 131st in passing last year. If you throw a true freshman out there who isn't ready to go, is it actually worse than last year? Because last time I checked, Wolverines had a pretty good season. Wasn't great. Not where it's going to be under Sherrone Moore, but it was pretty darn good. 8-5, not bad. Not bad at all with wins over Ohio State and Alabama to end the year. Could Bryce Underwood give you the 110th best passing offense? That would be a sizable increase. Could he give you the 75th best passing offense? That would be a sizable increase. Now, the receiving core still has some questions. I know there are a couple guys up there they like. I like the running back room personally. They brought in Justice Haynes from Alabama. Their running game's going to be sweet, and I always trust that Sherrone Moore knows what he's doing to coach up an offensive line and scheme a running game. He is as good at that as anybody in all of college football. So, that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is Bryce Underwood represents the changing of the guard for Michigan from Jim Harbaugh to Sherrone Moore. He is the first major player everyone's going to remember. And I just thought of a third reason too. We'll get to that in a moment. But he's the first guy that everybody looks at and says, oh, do you remember when Sherrone Moore flipped that? When he and his staff got that? That was huge. Introducing him directly to the fan base, even if he's not fully ready to be what he can be in his 3rd year starting in the maize and blue, for instance. Showing the fans what is possible, never a bad thing. Now, it depends on how you view the 2025 season. I look at it for Michigan the same way I kind of see it for Oregon, Ohio State, the other heavy hitters in the Big Ten. I don't expect any of them to be able to push for the national championship this year. They get pushed to make the playoff. I think that's less likely for Michigan given all they lost on defense, but Oregon, Ohio State lost a lot on defense as well. But all those teams can be good. I don't think they can be what they are at their peak. Ohio State won't be as good as they were last year. Oregon won't be as good as they were last year. Michigan, I think, could be about as good as they were last year. But I look at 2026 and those teams, you could have a 3-way quarterback matchup of Bryce Underwood at Michigan, either there are several options, Julian Sayin or Tavian St. Clair, both highly touted quarterback recruits at Ohio State, and potentially a 2nd year of Dante Moore at Oregon. That's what you call a quarterback prize fight. This year, the team I expect the most of is Penn State. And so for Michigan, because they have everybody coming back from a team that was 1 possession away from going to the national championship game. So I look at Michigan and say, boy, the opportunity to just generate even more buzz around the program and excitement and to just get the fan base humming, I think you can really do that. Here's the third reason, though, that I think Bryce Underwood should start this year for the Wolverines. What if he's really good, but not yet? That's okay, because J.J. McCarthy, yes, he had a year behind Cade McNamara, but J.J. McCarthy, it was his second year where Michigan won the national championship. It was his second year where he played himself into being a first-round pick in the NFL draft. It was his second year starting. I never, no matter how talented you are, what your profile is as a quarterback, I never expect you to be the best version of yourself in your first year starting in a new system. Now, unless you're a supremely veteran quarterback, like in the Big Ten last year, two best quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard. What had they done? Played for 3, 4, 5 years, however many it was, at previous stops. Unless you have that, I don't expect you to pop. I expect it to be a little bit like Dylan Raiola at Nebraska. You're going to see the potential. You could even win some games. Then he might take his lumps a little bit. But Nebraska is going to be better for that this year, and Michigan can be better for that in 2026 if they do that. And yes, selfishly, I want to see the young guys start. I want to see what they've got. I want to see who the light can turn on the quickest for amongst the 5-star quarterbacks out there. Juju Lewis at Colorado. I know what Caden Salter is. I don't think he's winning a Big 12 championship. Start the young kid and get his development underway. Maybe not in the first couple games. All right, fine. But by game 4 or 5, yeah, throw him out there. Let him learn on the job. Let him make some mistakes. Let him excite the fan base. Then you generate even more buzz off season. Then you get a Heisman campaign. Or one day Tavian St. Clair at Ohio State. Or Houston Longstreet at USC. Those are guys that don't have as clear of a path to getting there. You know, you look down at Alabama where they've got Keelan Russell and Ty Simpson's expected to be the starter. Well, maybe he will be. Maybe he won't be. I'd rather see Keelan Russell, but it's not as if Simpson wasn't a highly rated guy himself who's been in the program for several years. Maybe he's the right guy. That's a bit of a different situation, though, because there's pressure on Kalen DeBoer to win this year. I don't see it that way for Sherrone Moore in Michigan. Yeah, you got to be good. You got to win games. You'd love to beat Ohio State again. But more than anything, you've got to establish this program, and Bryce Underwood is supposed to be at the middle of all of it. So seeing him trending towards starting brightens my day. And if he starts week 1, I tell you what, I'm going to be in some kind of mood, and not just because college football will be back, but that'll always put me in a good mood. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.